Hey, shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker, and thanks for listening to Shout Out from the Pit. Hey, before we launch into this fun, edutaining show, just a few admin notes. First, thanks for your great feedback. Please keep sending suggestions on how we can improve your show. You know, you always hear me say this, everybody's got a story, and your story could change a life today. This platform was designed for ordinary folks like you to get your story heard and share victory for others looking for hope. Redbeard and I want to share your experience, strength, and hope and let folks know that they are not alone. It's really simple. Just tell us what your challenge was and how you overcame it. Check out shoutoutfromthepit.com and briefly share your story under the contact tab. We'll reach out to you for a chat and talk about doing a show. Remember just to give us your first name and what state or country you're from. I'm looking forward to meeting you. Merchandise and branding. We're asked about shirts and merch, and though it all sounds awesome, we don't have a budget yet to go in that direction. So if you have graphic skills, merchandise opportunities that are cheap, I mean really cheap, like even free, and made in America, of course, hit us up at shoutoutfromthepit.com. And the bucket is up. Hit the donation link on shoutoutfromthepit.com and help us update our ancient equipment and grow the show. A buck here and a buck there, and pretty soon we've got a really quality show and opportunities to bring Shout Out from the Pit to a city near you. Literally. More on this in the future. And be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with a friend. You'll get Diane's missives full of awesome tools and encouragement and episodes designed to edutain as you trudge the road to happy destiny. And again, another shout out to our anonymous donor for our really cool window stickers. I wished I could tell you who this organization was, but I was sworn to secrecy. Nonetheless, they're really cool stickers. I just got to find a way to get them out to y'all. Yuck, yuck. All right, so here's what to expect from this show. Jeremy, from episode 30, makes his hosting debut with the tribe talking about therapeutic modalities. You'll recognize all of the fellows from previous episodes talking about ways they deal with trauma, depression, anxieties, and life in general. Take notes if you're building a toolbox. There's lots of good stuff coming your way. Please note that there are some potential triggers as the guests are raw and uncensored. If you feel triggered and need help now, please call the National Suicide Hotline at 988. And remember, the views, thoughts, and insights from the host and guest are from their hearts. None of us are licensed professionals. We're just people like you on a recovery journey. And now, on with the show.
Shout out, folks. It's Jeremy coming at you raw and uncensored. As always, only God knows what's going to happen on this show. Welcome to Shout Out from the Pit. I'm the host for tonight's show, and Redbeard, the brains behind the scenes, is the Old Rucker's partner and producer. Our goal is to bring stories and topics designed to add to your toolbox as you trudge the road to happy destiny. Joining us tonight are Tony, Paul, Sloan, Pat, Bob, the Old Rucker, and Dwight, and Cody should be coming in shortly. Everybody, y'all want to give a shout out?
Hey!
That's everybody. That is everybody. So I'm glad y'all are all here tonight. We're going to have a topic tonight of alternate therapeutic modalities.
Alternate therapeutic modalities.
Yeah, we always know like the standard things that we do for our sobriety. We go to AA and NA, or for our mental health, we go to a therapist or a social worker, psychologist, psychiatry. We do those things. But I want to read something for y'all real quick. Check this out. Exercise is one of the best antidepressants. Physical exercise is often cited as one of the best antidepressants, and unlike most medications, it doesn't require a prescription. Studies on exercise show positive effects on preventing depression, alleviating anxiety, and improving sleep. A large 2018 study of 1.2 million Americans found that those who exercise experience an average of 43% fewer days of poor mental health per month than those who didn't.
43%.
43%. Light therapy can combat seasonal depression. Light therapy, which involves using a special lamp to simulate sunlight, has been shown to improve symptoms of depression, particularly seasonal affective depression disorder, SAD. It may also benefit those with non-seasonal depression. And I know several people in the military that are stationed in northern places where it gets dark early in the day and they only experience a few hours of sunlight. They have light rooms that they can go into.
A light room.
Mm-hmm. Creative therapies offer unique approaches, such as music therapy. Combining music therapy with standard care has shown promise in improving depressive symptoms, reducing anxiety, enhancing overall functioning. It may also provide comfort for individuals with schizophrenia. I found that pretty interesting. Art therapy studies suggest art therapy can help minimize symptoms and maximize function for people with mental illness. And dance therapy, using body movements in dance therapy, can offer an outlet for emotional expression and potentially benefit both physical and mental health. Now, I want to see Sloan dance.
Come on, Sloan, bust a move.
Ancient practices are gaining popularity. Practices like Tai Chi, yoga, meditation are rooted in ancient Eastern traditions, are increasingly used in the U.S. Meditation use specifically saw a significant increase between 2012 and 2017. Research indicates these practices can help reduce stress, anxiety, and depression. You should always consider potential risks, such as some alternative therapies. Let me back up for a second because I got twisted up on my words. Sure. You should always consider potential risk with some alternative therapies and talk with your medical provider first before trying. I do want to throw that out there because we are not doctors and we are not giving medical advice.
That's right.
Herbal supplements such as St. John's wort and kava are common herbal remedies for mental health. But unlike conventional medications, they are not strictly regulated by the FDA, raising concerns about quality and potency, and they can also interact dangerously with your medications that are prescribed by your doctor. Meditation risks, while generally safe, some individuals have rarely reported increased anxiety or negative experiences with certain relaxation techniques. The placebo effect and natural fluctuations can play a role in mental health conditions like depression and anxiety can improve over time naturally. This can lead people to believe an alternative therapy is responsible for the improvement when it may have happened anyway. The placebo effect, where the expectation of gaining better leads to improvement, can also be a factor. Aromatherapy is an ancient practice with limited research. Aromatherapy using scents and oils with therapeutic purposes has a long history. While more research is needed, some studies suggest it may help reduce stress, ease anxiety, and promote relaxation. Cranial electrotherapy stimulation, CES, involves a small electrical device that delivers tiny electrical current to the brain. The FDA recognizes CES as a treatment for anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, although the exact mechanism isn't fully understood. Animal-assisted therapy is becoming more common. Equine therapy, which involves interacting with horses, is an example of animal-assisted therapy used for mental health. This approach is believed to help with social skills, emotional regulation, and self-confidence. Many people with mental health conditions use alternative therapies. Studies indicate that individuals with mental disorders who use alternative treatments are also likely to seek conventional treatments like psychotherapy and medication. Surveys have shown that a significant percentage of adults use complementary and alternative medicine for conditions like depression and anxiety. And one of the things that immediately came to my mind, and we can talk more in depth about it here in just a minute when we were talking about ancient practices like yoga. In 2020, when I quit smoking, and I tell people all the time, man, I encourage people to quit smoking. I encourage people to quit vaping, but I come to you with solutions. That's what my thing has always been. Don't come to me and tell me I need to do something and don't give me a solution.
Right.
In 2020, whenever I quit smoking using yoga and meditation. So every day, whenever I was practicing yoga, is whenever I quit smoking. And I would love to, we'll talk more about that when we get into the show, but it's interesting.
So note to self, stay away from yoga and meditation. I'm a cigar smoker, so I need to stay away from yoga and meditation. Okay, I got it.
Anybody got any other thoughts they want to share before we get started on any of that? Anything that stood out or you found interesting in that? Pat?
Actually, okay. So Jeremy, you hit on a lot of because all of us in here are recovering, right? So we're let's take the recovery out. Let's go back in the old days when we're just inundated with information overload. So I'm one of those guys, as you name those things off, I saw myself with candles lit in some kind of bizarre pose, you know, with wire sticking out of my head. And, you know,
at least it was your head.
Because it's like, I got to try it all because, you know, I'm an insane type of guy. So as you're going through all these opportunities to deal with depression, anxiety, I'm like, well, is there a recipe that we could try them all? We could do it all like Gonzo on, what is that, Sesame? It's great when it works, you know, just throw ourselves out in traffic and get hit by all these, you know. How would somebody systematically go through these to figure out, you know, which one might work for them? You know, I mean, I've heard of some of these I haven't heard of, but that's what went through my mind was, how do you settle on something, you know? And, you know, people try to push, and no offense to any audience out there, they're selling those oils and different candles and different herbs. But, you know, all of us, I can't speak for all of you, but I've traveled and people want to push you know what this sense will do? This oil will fill in the blanks. And I'm like,
give me a headache.
Right, snake oil.
I love it. Snake oil salesman. You know, and that's the thing is that, like, I've tried oils and different things. And I think as you were talking, Bob, what came to my mind was I have a disease of more.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I'm an alcoholic and I want more.
Yeah.
If it is good, I want more of it.
Heck yeah.
It doesn't matter whether it's exercise, you know, a medication that's going to make me feel better, therapy, sex, doesn't matter.
Right.
I want more. I want more of everything.
That's right.
And so, you know, how do you land on it? I don't know. You got to answer that one for yourself, I think.
Okay, but I could see, like, okay, smells. Hey, Cody. I could
What's
see
up,
where
Good to see you.
okay, like I'm thinking of a teenage male or female that put on that cheap, you know, corner store cologne or perfume.
Axe body spray.
Oh man, what's wrong with that stuff, bro?
I still have a couple of cans in my bathroom.
Well, you know how these young folks walk by you because I don't know what makes them think that but the smells are loud and they're a turnoff. Mm-hmm. But then, you know, a lady may pass me by in a store and I catch the scent. I don't even know if she's there, but I'm like, wow, that smells really good. You know, and there is something about the smell that can kind of help with like my wife wears this crazy, awesome perfume that she's just always, or I don't want her wearing anything else. It just smells so good that when I smell her, it's a good sensation. Now, it's not like I'm going to spray her perfume on my pillow when she goes out of town, but you know, it's just well, maybe I will.
Oh, come on, Bob. You're not going to use body wash when she's gone?
That was part of my therapy when Robin died. I squirt her perfume on that pillow.
Oh,
well, Paul, I'm glad you brought that up because that's going to bring us to our first thing that I would like for us to share on. And that's a great place to start, right? Because what therapies have you used for your mental health? Whenever there's episodes 28 and 38, the Ben Grimes episodes.
Oh,
so
yeah,
if you have not listened to those, go back and listen to them. He talks about therapies that he does through theater and acting, and it was the name is gone from me. It's called The Breach. The Breach program is what he does. And so there's so many alternative therapies out there now today for mental health. And Paul, you just brought up a perfect example of that. And can you go back and talk more about that?
Well, it's I came in and found her, so there's no closure whatsoever. It's not, she'd been sick, but they were saying she was getting better. So this just, bam, coming in and finding her, and it's just like that hole, and I was so used to, when you wake up next to somebody for so many years and they're not there, you miss that touch, that smell, and one of the things, I wasn't sleeping very good, but it would give me maybe an hour extra sleep. When you're only sleeping 1 to 2 hours, hours a lot more time. And I just put a little bit on her pillow, and it would just calm me down enough where the images weren't flashing in my head, and I could sleep for that extra hour. Now, the nightmare still came, but it was something that helped me sleep. And it was a big comfort, just that smell, and at that point in time, a vehicle passed by. I'm seeing her in the vehicle. That's how my mind was working to try to deal with all this. And that's I went batshit crazy in sobriety over all that. Changed sponsors, did a lot of different things. And the sponsor, he told me to go to therapy because I didn't want to be here again. And that was the first time in sobriety. I just did not want to be on this earth. And that sucker refused to talk to me. He said, "Go see a therapist." And I'm like, I said, "I'll go see one, but I can't be honest, because I didn't want to be here." And he says, "No, you got to be honest." And I says, "I'll get locked up." So he quit talking to me until I agreed to go see a therapist. Fucker. And I had to be honest with the therapist. I said, "Well, what do I do when he asks, do I have a plan?" He said, "Tell him you do." I'm like, shit. So I go in there and he says, our first session, and we're talking about it. And he says, I said, I don't want to be on this earth anymore. And I'm in sobriety, and this is the first time it's happened, and I don't know how to deal with it. Because at that time, sobriety is supposed to be sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. Everything was good. And he said, "Okay, well, that's okay not to want to be here as long as you don't have a plan." I said, "Oh, I have a plan." He said, "What is it?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go spread her ashes, take the kayak out. I'm going to have a cinder block and a chain, and I'm going to dump it and drown." He's like, "Okay, but do you have a time?" I said, "Probably in the spring when the weather's nicer." And he said, "So we're not locked in today." And I was like, "No, it's just working through all that stuff and getting that stuff out, and helped me a lot." I mean, I know we're not here to talk about AA, but after a few sessions with him, he just says, "AA's giving you more than I can possibly give you." And he did. He said, "You're doing better than anybody else I'm seeing that's going through this." And he says, "And I accredit AA for it, your sponsor." He says, "You get on the phone, he picks up. You got to go through a message system for me. I got to book you in." He said, "You're getting solution right then." So, and he was right, because I did, sponsor, asshole, also had me go to a grief counseling or grief support group.
Like a grief share.
Yeah. And, after about 4 sessions of that, I'm like, holy, I am doing great. Not to put it down by any means, but there was people in there who still couldn't get off the couch, who were really struggling, and it's beat into my head. I got to pick up the phone and call. And, they're not doing that. So they're just in their head over all this stuff. And, it's years and years later. And I just couldn't. I was like, "Dean, I can't deal with this." I said, I'm trying to get them into solution. This is what I do. I said, and that's probably good. I'm going in there. I'm thinking I'm going to get something out of it. And here I am, a sick bastard. When I don't get something out of it, I'm ready to bail, and Dean's still making me go. And he said, "Well, maybe they're getting something out of what you're telling them. You ever think about that?" "No, I'm selfish and self-centered." "No, I'm not thinking about them. I'm thinking about me." But, I eventually just had to, it was, maybe it's because I'm a guy and most of them were women. I just had to step back from that. It started becoming detrimental to my mental health, because they're living in the problem and not trying to get into a solution. And like I said, I'm not putting it down by any means. Maybe different ones were different. Maybe it was just the batch I was in. There's no telling.
I think that's an important point that you made too, right there, is it got detrimental to your mental health, and you saw that and were able to walk away from that. And one of the things that we were talking about before the show is whenever I went through CBT therapy, like those first few weeks, I'm driving down the road on the way home, and nobody told me that I was going to be this angry whenever I'm facing these things. And so for the audience out there, CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. And I did it through the VA, and it's a workbook, and they talk about, okay, what things in your life bother you? What bothered you about, the things that you saw and the things that you did, right? And now we want you to start writing in this workbook about this. And whenever I would leave the VA, I'm driving down these windy roads running 80 to 100 miles an hour, hoping that I'll run off the road and hit a tree. Like, I'm not going to intentionally go drive into a tree, but if I have an accident and I hit a tree, okay, I had an accident, right? But I'm self-destructing based on what I'm going through. And like, I didn't really realize it at the time, so I'm glad that you realized it. Now, I will say, anybody that I recommend CBT therapy for, I tell them that whenever I have a conversation with them, because ultimately it did change my life as how I looked at those events and thought about those things that had happened. So it did help.
Hey, Jeremy, was that through the PTSD program when you did the CBT?
It was.
So you had 2 workbooks?
I had 2.
I went through the same program, man. So I didn't have the windy curve, but I had I wasn't a pleasant person to be around. I'm just going to say it gently, so because it's kind of raw when we're dealing with that. So at least I was made aware to tell the loved ones, hey, y'all might want to give me some space for a minute. Did you go through that? Yeah. Yeah,
I went through that. And the therapist that I saw, I mean, he was a great person. And he told me, I was in early sobriety when I'm doing it. And he told me, he's like, essentially everybody that goes through this program is going to relapse in the first 2 weeks.
Oh.
And I'm like, how is this supposed to help me? If your program is going to make me relapse, how is it supposed to help? Right. But I didn't relapse, but I dang sure didn't want to be alive at that particular point in time.
That's
either.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you keep your workbooks?
I'm pretty sure I ran it through a shredder.
So did I. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to see that again, man. Yeah.
No. Has anybody else done any other like alternative therapies for mental health and therapy?
When I was at treatment, I did the cognitive. I was in that class, CBT, and I also was in a PTSD because of my childhood. And here's the thing. I didn't know I had PTSD. I knew I had a shitty childhood, but I always related PTSD to military, going to war and all these other things, which I grew up in a gang heavy neighborhood when I was a kid. And it got explained to me. It's a war. And I was like, no, it's not. But he said, did you see people die? Yes. Did you ever shoot at something? Yes. And you're answering all these questions. But that's just that's just where I lived. It was ghetto. I was the only white kid. So I did not everybody. I did what the hooligans did. The broke people, rob, steal, get food, whatever. And, so yeah, they told me I had PTSD from all that stuff. And it never dawned on me that could be PTSD because I'd related it to war, to military.
Tony, do you have anything?
All right. Yeah, I've been through a few alternative. So I never went through CBT, but I did go through CPT, cognitive processing therapy, which really looks at facts versus feelings, look at your stuck points, challenging, the beliefs that you have in your head and trying to figure out if it's just something you're telling yourself or it's actually a fact. And then, so that was good. That was helpful. Went through DBT, which was dialectical behavioral therapy, which focused more on working on your emotions and how you work and handle things and deal with other people and things like that. Because anger That's one of my fallback emotions all the time as well, was anger. Whether it was to cover up fear, sadness, loneliness, whatever, anger was always just in the hip pocket, always ready to go. Went through, anybody been through EMDR?
What is EMDR?
It's eye movement desensitization, and I can't remember what the R stands for. Basically, they put you in front of this, looks like an old Atari, and there's a little blinking dot that goes back and forth, and it's supposed to desensitize you. You're supposed to talk about your traumas, and it's supposed to desensitize you because the dot goes back and forth, and it beeps. It was too fucking weird for me. That was not helpful at all. I really cut that one. What else? Did transcranial magnetic stimulation. That was about 6 weeks of going into a place where they put this halo on your head and they give you 3,000 pulses of magnetic stimulation. And what that does is supposed to reconnect different neural pathways in your brain, and that helps with major depressive disorders and some traumas and stuff like that. So that did help. Didn't fix me. But the two that I think helped me the most was electroconvulsive therapy, which is definitely a little bit more intensive. It's a little bit more. It's basically one of the last things that you're going to have to do, because it involves you going in and going under anesthesia. They put these electric probes and they actually initiate a seizure. And what that seizure is supposed to do is supposed to reprogram some of the pathways, kind of like the transcranial magnetic, but at a much higher level. So I believe that really did help a lot. I did that for 11 sessions, and let me tell you, it's got some side effects. So definitely when you come out of it, you're smoked. You're tired. Like, I would go to sleep for about 4 hours afterwards. Nausea, headaches, like there are some very acute side effects after you do a treatment. You normally do about 3 treatments a week. And then there can be like some mild memory loss. And I did have some mild memory loss, which was short term, but it comes back. So, I mean, they're trying to reprogram pathways. It's not like, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Jack Nicholson shock therapy. It's really not like that at all. It's really good. And when I say it's supposed to, cause a seizure, the seizure, you can't even tell. You'll see like the doctor said, the toe will be twitching or something like that. But that's how they know. And they're following this on this computer that's showing how much you're getting and what's going on in your brain. So
you're under. Oh yeah, you're under.
So you have no idea that this is happening.
I mean, I agreed to it.
No, I mean, but
no. Once they put the IV in, when you get there, they pull you in there. Anesthesiologist sits there and says, "Count to 5." You're down by 3, and they just do their thing. They wheel you out 5 minutes later. So that was one thing that I think really helped, because I haven't felt the way I used to since I did that. And then the last thing that's kind of normal is prolonged exposure. So those two things, ECT and PE, really helped. Anybody ever done prolonged exposure?
No, what is it?
So prolonged exposure is basically, they want you to focus on one specific event. So the event that I focused on is when I lost a soldier in Afghanistan the first 5 days. And you're working very intensely with a therapist at this time. So you tell the therapist the story, and this is over a period of time, builds up to it. Once you can get all of that out, you write it down. You write it in a journal. Okay, once you do that, then you record it, and you have to listen to it every day. Ooh. So that, I had way more different events that I had to work on, but the science shows that if you can work on one specific event that affects you the most, it kind of desensitizes you more to the others. I wrote it, I recorded it, and I listened to it every day for probably 3 weeks. And then at the end, I had to read that story to a group of other combat vets and something we called the war room. And I think that ECT and prolonged exposure is probably what's helped me the most.
So how are you doing with those events now today?
They don't bother me nearly as much as they used to. Wow. I mean, I carry them on my arm. Memorial, I stopped wearing my memorial bracelet, that black bracelet that I used to wear because I would wake up at night and sweats and gripping for the bracelet. And my wife said, that is not helping you at all. It was just one of those things that I had to take it off and I had to stop wearing it. But instead of doing that, I just got a tattoo with them on my arm. And, every April and May, that's the anniversaries for the 3 that I have here. It's always a little difficult, but it doesn't put me in the dark place like it used to. It doesn't make me feel the way that it used to. So, on Veterans Day, something that a few of us do is go on a road trip, which actually helps. Not a road test, Bob, but a road trip.
Road test.
Right, yeah.
There's a story.
And that actually helps as well, just being around other people. And, when you were talking about when Paul was talking about the AA program, of course, that's huge in my life because every person that I hang out with is in the program, and being able to pick up that phone and call somebody or just know that there's somebody that's there if you need them. That's huge. And it's sad because it's great for us, but a lot of the population doesn't have that. They don't have those deep, intimate type of connections and friendships that we do in this program. And sometimes, they use other ways to cope. So,
yeah, good word, bro.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. Paul, now I'm going to come back to you for a second because you shared, and then I want to get some input from some other folks in the room. Now, you shared about Robin. How are you doing with that now today after the things that you've done?
Remarkably well. And again, I used to have lunch. I still do on occasion with the deacon at the church. His wife's name was Robin, lo and behold. And he's the one that set me up with the original therapist. It was through the church. But, dates can be, it's kind of like waves in my head. They'll come, they'll be big, but they just don't last as long. It's bam, it hurts like hell, but then it's gone again. And it's less for dates. Of course, anniversaries, birthdays. Her birthday was the day after my birthday. I hate my birthday now. I don't say hate it. I don't enjoy it like I used to. And but I'm not. There's no tears running down my thing, and I'm not at a place today where I don't want to be here. I want to be, even going through all that, I'm still praying to God to wake me up and give me another day and thanking Him when I woke up and I was miserable. I didn't want to be here, but I was still beat into my head prayers. And it's, so just because I didn't want to be here didn't mean that I didn't want to be here. I mean, it's all feelings, emotion. And yeah, it's a lot better. I'm in a pretty healthy relationship today. And, and you talked about sharing your thing with everybody. And that's something I had to do with PTSD. It's something I've had to do with the therapist or in AA is talk about these things that I don't want to talk about and re-talk about these things that I don't want to talk about. And somewhere along the way, it's taken the edge off it, and it's not cutting me every time I talk about it. And you said other people, and I don't believe the general population. I was taught you do not talk about these things. You bury them. You're a man. We don't share our dirty laundry. Keep that shit in the closet. Man up, suck it up, and keep going. And it just, all these things just building up, and I didn't handle life very good on life's terms, So I'm a Moor, and I did everything I possibly could to not be on this earth. And today I do things to be on this earth, other than exercise.
Well, we're going to get there in just a few minutes. You know, you said something, Paul, and it's early on in sobriety, there was something that was told to me, and it was told as the flat cat theory, but for all the cat lovers out there, we're going to call it the flat possum theory. You know, whenever you drive down the road and you see a possum in the road that's been run over, you know, hit by a car, the more that possum gets run over, the flatter it gets. And that's the same thing with the traumas that happen in our life. The more we talk about them and the more we share them, the less that car bumps when we go over that hump in the road.
Good.
You know, anybody else got anything to share? Talking to the microphone, Pat.
Yeah, share
Say
with
it loud and
us.
proud,
Share with us.
Pat.
No, what he was saying, and I've heard it, you know, when we talk about things, the power's taken out of it. And it was something that I had to learn very early on. You know, I went through my stuff, you know, and once I was able to open up and start talking about things, slowly everything started getting a little bit better. And the guys that are sitting in this room know that I struggle in the month of November, and September's not a good month and this and that, but I talk about it. And I have friends now that will text me and say, hey, I know today's a bad day. Today, you know, whatever day that was, you know, and man, to have somebody that cares for you that deeply, you know, it makes me want to be better on those days. You know, yes, I'm going to struggle on those days. I'm going to feel some emotion, but I've got people to turn to today. So talking about it has been my therapy. So, yeah.
So, Pat, totally identify. What was it? You know, y'all know that my dad suicided on December 21st. So I hadn't hardly been out of the lockup very long. And that day, December 21st, and we're talking, 40 years ago, it still rings in infamy. And then Christmas Eve, we buried him. And so every year, you know, I feel really bad for, you know, my loved ones, my circle, because, you know, they want to enjoy Christmas, but I got to put on that facade. You know, I didn't used to. I was kind of like a banana, and I just go somewhere and isolate, or I'd be in public, and you know how you got that resting banana face. Nobody wants to be around you, and I'm trying to be nice, obviously, but y'all know what I mean. But I like two things I heard, and you actually, Tony, used the word desensitized. As I learned to talk about, because I don't want to talk about, because Paul, you hit it right on the head, man. Some of us were raised at, you know, if you sound like if you're expressing your emotions, and you know you're less than a man, you know, and well, none of us males want to be less than a man, so we don't go there. So we, what do you call that? Internalize. Yeah.
Well, that, and sometimes it's weaponized against men.
Well, there's that. So, and then I love that flat possum. What did you call that, Jeremy?
The flat possum theory.
Yeah, and I get it. That's like that desensitized thing. We just deal with it, and then after a while, you know, I'm not going to say it ever goes away, nor do I want it to. But I want to be able to deal with it, and then and I love what you said, Paul, about I want to be alive today. So I've got to deal with some of that, because now y'all give me not a reason to live, but you support me in my desire to live. If I didn't want to live, I wouldn't be here. That's just the way it is. But I don't want to be miserable and want to die at the same time and then not die. That's just so. What am I going to do about it? I'm going to listen to y'all. I'm going to hang out. When I got to, I'm going to get sensitive and emotional around y'all. And I know that's something we keep in the tribe, you know. Nobody's going to go out on public radio and say, hey, I saw Bob break down on 14th and, you know, D Street. And because I have insecurities about being less than a man to this day. And then you guys help me too. Just like, hey, you are a man by doing what you're doing.
Right. And I think that that's a big key, is that one of the things that I've learned through this deal is one of the bravest and most courageous things I can do is share my feelings with another man today. It doesn't make, a lot of people think about this idea of sharing with another man may make me gay or queer or whatever this is, right? But one of, and if it does, that's fine. But this idea of the bravest things that I can do today is open up myself and expose myself and share my feelings with another man. Well, anybody got any other thoughts?
I was going to say, Jeremy, I don't know that that's built into our DNA. I think it's something we have to learn. And once we learn it, it's a great tool. It has been for me. I was really bad about trying to put things in a box and then put a lock on that box and never think about it again. But on certain days, Bob, we have that in common. My mother died on Christmas Eve of, she killed herself with alcohol. And it used to be the next day, Christmas was just a dark day for me. And I would not show up at family events for Christmas or show up and be a big mess and be half drunk because I couldn't get full drunk around my family. And they were just like, what is going on with you, man? What? They had all kind of gotten over it, I think, but I didn't. And, I think being able to talk about that with my tribe, I don't necessarily bring it up in AA stuff because it is not directly related to my alcoholism, but seeing her go through that, and then I tried my best to save her. I was 21 years old, and I thought I had that power in me to save her, and I did not. And I chose to die on a hill that I was certainly going to die on, and I really had some mental things come after that. And I think once I started seeking God. And I realized that God didn't do that to me. I blamed God for that for a long time. How could you take her away? Well, no, she had to walk her own path. And just talking about it has really helped me. So,
awesome word.
Yeah.
That's great. Anybody else?
I'll say that one thing that as I've been listening is that the exposure therapy, I feel like in a way that talking about it is a form of exposure therapy. And I've found the same thing, is that like the more that I talk about things, and just listening to Paul speak, I didn't realize there were so many similarities across, my late wife's birthday is 2 days after mine. So I don't enjoy my birthday either. So my birthday is November 6th. Her birthday was always November 8th. Right. And so we would celebrate on the 7th, both of our birthdays. So it's just kind of like that whole week, is just a tough week for me. But what I found was ignoring it and ultimately like being in a delusional denial of like early on, just like when Paul was talking, I'd wake up in the middle of the night with sweats and I thought I would feel Katie next to me. And I'd grab the covers next to me and I'd grab her pillow and she wasn't there. And it was something that I never talked about. I didn't discuss it with people, those instances when I would have that in the middle of the night. But I started having my youngest son sleep in the bed next to me, just so that there was a warm body, so that in the middle of the night he would wiggle around, and in my head it would trick my brain into thinking someone was there next to me. Because you sleep next to someone over, night after night, you're used to that. But the more I started talking about it and being honest about it, I realized it's not, I'm not unique. I'm not different. Other people have had similar experiences to that, which gave me comfort, because I was like, I felt like I was on this island. Like, no one knows how I feel. I feel horrible, right? No one's ever been through any of it, And so, but then as I started talking about it, not only did, in a way, it desensitized me to it, it took the power away from it, but it also helped me, because I'm one of these people that when I can write something down, like when I'm studying something, I'll read it, I'll say it out loud, I'll read it aloud, and then I'll also write it down, and I'll go back and reread it. And so in a way, talking about it over and over and over, different thoughts, different things come up as I'm talking about it. I'm like, wow, I never thought about it this way or that way or whatever it is. I never went through. I went through what was called. They tried to get me to go through the MAT program, which is a medically assisted treatment, and they wanted to put me on Vivitrol. And what Vivitrol does is when you drink, it effectively you don't feel the drunk. So it's designed to, when you drink, you don't feel the desired effect of drinking. But I didn't want that. I never did that. I did go through what they call CAT when I was in Arkansas Department of Corrections, which is criminal addictive thinking, which is interesting because it talks about, a lot of it talks about like criminal activity, but it's a broad spectrum. So like getting drunk and getting behind the wheel is against the law. It's a criminal act, right? So once I went through that program and they were putting titles to, a name to it, I was like, holy cow, that I think like that. I do those things. And the more I started to listen to this CAT program, I started to identify with it. And then again, I didn't feel so alone. Like, oh, there's more people out there that are going through the same thing and have been through the same thing. So, and then one thing that Paul did mention that I work out a lot and it helps me. I get in the gym and I put in my headphones and I listen to music and I zone out and I work out. I like to run. I like to work out. And not only, I have a desk job, so I sit at a desk all day long, so I have no physical exertion. A lot of times I'm mentally exhausted from looking at spreadsheets and reports all day. But getting in the gym and hitting it hard for an hour, hour and a half, I sleep better at night. I wake up feeling more rested. And, oftentimes when I miss a workout, if I try to never go 3 consecutive days without working out, right? So, but when I do, maybe it's a holiday, maybe I'm traveling, I go 3 consecutive days, I start being restless. I don't sleep as well. I'm irritable. I'm just not the same person. I'm just not. But and that helps me. I mean, touching on some of the other stuff is like the images flashing. Like I found my wife in the backyard. She had already passed. I tried to do CPR and everything else. It was just I just tried to do that. In my brain, going back and thinking about the scenario and having talked about it, I knew she had already passed, but I was still trying to do that. Yeah, and then waking up in the middle of the night and seeing, her body and that whole, just those scenes flash over and over and over. And then when my brother committed suicide and seeing him shoot himself, those scenes flash over and over and over, and his head just exploding, going on the wall. And so that was a whole nother layer of having to try to get through that stuff. But, ultimately, I think that it does boil down to having, and you guys mentioned it, a good tribe, a good group of guys that you can talk to, that you can count on, that you can be open and honest and vulnerable with. And at the end of the day, not a lot of people have that, and that's something that I'm thankful for today. I'm thankful for you guys, and I'm thankful for, the tribe that I have. So it's a support system and someone who's going to hold you accountable and call you on your crap. That's big for me, right? I had a lot of people in my life that were enablers, and they're like, it's okay. You lost your wife, you lost your brother, your dad died, you did this and that, you'll get through it. It really wasn't until I had someone that was like, yeah, you're going to have to work through it, because as you mentioned, you're either going to be here or you're not going to be here. And if you have a desire to live and you have a desire to continue to live your life, then you've got to work through these things. You've got to. And it's interesting. A lot of the things that Paul said, I just identified a lot with. Like, and I haven't really shared this with anybody, but after my wife passed away, I had a plan, right? I had a plan. I knew exactly what I was going to do. And I got really far into that plan. I mean, I took an extension cord, I tied it around the tree in the backyard, I tied a noose in it, I put my neck in it, I stood on a cinder block and kicked the cinder block out from underneath me, but it didn't fall all the way over. It like fell on its side. And as soon as that extension cord tightened around my neck, instantly I knew I wanted to live. And I was like, what did I just do? And it was like on the tippy tip of my toes that I could like get on the edge of that cinder block just enough to loosen. And really I haven't told but a handful of people that, but it's interesting when when you get to that point and you try to take your life, it's how quickly you realize you've made a mistake. You know, I've read a lot about that, and the survival, you know, human instinct to survive, to do, you know, it kicks in that you're going to do what you have to do to survive. And that's a human instinct, but it's those emotions get the best of you, and you think you want to end it, and then really quick those emotions go out the window in a matter of a millisecond, and your human instinct kicks in, and it's like you're going to do whatever it takes to survive, and you're not thinking about those sad emotions anymore. So it's you know, it's an interesting thing, grief, and it can lead you down a really, really dark road. But I'm very thankful to be where I am today and to have the people in my life that I have. And so it's one of those things where if you wake up in the morning and you're lucky, you know. I hope the good Lord continues to wake me up in the morning so I can have many more days with you guys and fun memories and good times. So.
Awesome. I believe I shared this with you guys after this happened. You know, I think it was God doing for me what I could not do for myself, because at that point in time, I still had a power of choice, but something happened where that had left me. And it was like you said, every time I closed my eyes, it was running. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't sleep. Or if I did sleep, I'd wake up and it'd be running. So, and it's just a non-ending cycle. And it was I have a physical job, so I don't. End of the day, I'm not up for exercising, but it was that first beautiful spring day, and I'd gotten off work early, and I was working up there past the liquor store at Bald Knob, and I say it was God and I drove by that liquor store, and I was so excited. And here's the kicker. I was coming home on this first beautiful spring day to pick Robin up, and we were going to go kayaking. And I didn't realize until I pulled into my driveway, why am I so fucking happy to pick her up when she's dead? How the hell did I forget this? And if there had been a crack house across the street, I'd have gave every bit of money I had to get some crack. Or if I could have made it to the liquor store, but I was crying so hard, and I tried to back out of the driveway and go to the liquor store, and I couldn't see, so I just put it in park. And I just went inside. I'm texting Dean because I couldn't talk, and I just had a meltdown inside the house. And now, see, I say God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself at that point in time. I needed the mental break. I needed the happiness because I didn't have it. I wasn't feeling it. And so, it was just a messed up situation. And Dean, everything happens for a reason. I got with Dean. My first sponsor was very religious. So God was God. You don't cuss God, this type of thing. And Dean's like, God's waiting on you. You better take it to him before you implode. And I did. I think I shared that with y'all that during the winter, I just had this knock down, drag out fight. I was the only one that made it to this house because of the ice on the roads. And God and I fought all day. And I ended up just sitting on that bucket and bawling. But we had a knockdown, cuss out, everything. And I used to do that drunk, but but this was sober.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, my understanding of a higher power God changed during all that. And this was really messed up. I felt like I had my ass kicked and a hangover from hell for about a week. And then the next time I had to blow up with God, that hangover only lasted about 3 days. And then it happened again, and it only lasted a day. So I think there's something to it, and I believe my bond with my God has gotten better through all that stuff, taking it to him. And he's just said, like Dean said, take it to him. He's waiting on you to come to him with it.
Right. I think that's awesome. All right, everybody, we're going to take a quick break, folks, and we're going to reset, and we're going to come back. And we've only got a little bit of time left tonight, but we're going to talk about a couple other things real quick before we wrap up. Cool. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're back from the break. I hope you learned some things through that first segment that can help you in a positive way to help maintain your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. I do want to go into the conversation now. Let's change this. And we talked a lot about our mental health, maintaining sobriety in that first segment, and how being in sobriety helped us maintain our mental health and how that kind of played into works. But we also know that physical health plays a huge role in that. I know that my physical health plays a role not only in the physical, but the mental, the spiritual, the emotional, and my sobriety. You know, and the example we were just talking about on the break was, you know, you have to have a certain level of discipline and dedication to be able to maintain physical health, right? It doesn't just come inherently natural to everybody. And whenever I had my transplant, I was on life support for 30 days. Whenever I came out of that, I went from a guy who was 227 pounds of muscle to a guy that couldn't even get out of bed and walk. That first day, whenever I first tried to walk, that very first day after waking up, I walked 300 feet and I stopped 4 times to sit down during that, you know, and that was the best I could do with a walker, you know, and a therapist holding me up. And then I get to day 2 and I walk a little bit further, and, you know, and at the end of that day, I look at her and I say, well, how far do I have to walk tomorrow to be able to get on a treadmill and start rebuilding muscle? Because mentally, I am screwed at this point because I am having a hard time processing everything that just happened through that. And now physically, I'm also down. Mm-hmm. I've got to have a goal. I've got to have a mark. There's something there that what can I hit that's going to change that and change my focus and give me something to look at that's going to give me a target on the wall to shoot at. And she looked at me and she said, you've got to walk 1,000 feet. And I said, okay, I can do that. She said, without stopping. And I thought, I don't know if I can do that. But that next day I got up and it took everything and every fiber of my being. And I walked 1,000 feet, and she looked at me at the end of that. And she said, okay, tomorrow we're going to get on a treadmill and we're going to start rebuilding your muscle. And I got on that treadmill that next day, and now I had to stop 4 times on that treadmill, but I never got off of it. And when the doctors came in the room and they said, hey, look, you've lost a lot. You're going to be in here for at least 2 months before you're physically strong enough to get out of here. 9 days later, I had rebuilt enough muscle that they discharged me out of the hospital.
Awesome.
So I think that, you know, there's a level of mental toughness, but, you know, that physical aspect of that can change our mental and spiritual and emotional. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think that we were talking about earlier with exercise and physical exertion, you know, it affects all parts of my life. I mentioned earlier the 3 consecutive days is kind of just a rule that I set for myself, but it's also about a bit of feeling a sense of accomplishment. You know, when you that first day, you know, you went so many feet, and then that second day you have a goal, you have something that you're working towards. So when I get a new time on a mile on a run, or if I get a new personal best on a resistance training, a different weight, a higher weight, or sometimes repetition. So I'll do a lower weight, but instead of doing 20, I'll shoot for 50, right? And it's a sense of accomplishment that I get when I set a goal, I get in there, I push myself mentally to reach that goal, and then I reach the goal, and then I'm like, okay, what else is possible? But that, I feel like, has bled over a lot into also the rest of my life. You know, I think that knowing mentally how tough you are, and not relapsing, not, you know, going back to the bottle or going back to drugs is something that ties closely to my physical fitness and my health. And again, sleeping better, being in a better mood, listening to music, the type of music that I listen to, it plays a big part in my recovery. You know, I can only speak for myself, and then there are a lot of studies. You know, there's a line in a movie. It's a kind of a comedic line, but it says, exercise releases endorphins, and endorphins make you happy. but it's true. It's a true thing. There's science behind. It's science backed. That working out, physical exertion, your body releases chemicals and hormones and things that make you feel happier than if you were to not physically exert your body. So
yeah, that's all I've experienced every one of those things that you just shared. Anybody else? Any thoughts?
I'm not called the old rucker for nothing. The vets that are in here, we can all identify with being forced to exercise and, kind of feeling macho about it. We're young. We're a couple of Marines in here, a couple of soldiers. When we're young, it's completely different motivation. We just want to be studly. And then as we get older, things start breaking down. I used to be like, one of your typical soldiers that would go in the gym and be a muscle head. I want to see how much of this, this barbell I want to see how much I can get up. I want to deadlift, whatever. And then, of course, it jacked up my body. I had 3 surgeries on my shoulder, started having back issues because I wanted to be studly. And then science, is coming along saying, hey, dude, you need to find an alternative method to exercise, but what you're doing is killing yourself. So, I was already involved in martial arts. So I started doing this real tough, combative one called Tai Chi. Anybody's. It was a little embarrassing to do it in the beginning. Yeah. It was a little embarrassing. Somebody going to see me do this, So I started getting into that. And then the yoga that you talked about earlier, I kind of experienced that. And it was, man, I really had to train my brain to get into this stuff because, in my opinion, wasn't cool, wasn't studly. But when you're like me, I'm considered a senior citizen now. My body cannot do the things that you could do, Cody, right? I don't run. I don't even run to the bathroom. That's why they make Depends. So, but I ruck. And that's carrying against, because I love backpacking. That is my zen, right? So, and you're going to talk about that later. So I get a weighted pack and I train, and I'll do that, for an extensive amount of miles. And then I go to the gym, and Cody, I'm on that kick now where I don't do heavy weights at all. I'm done with heavy weights. And it took me a while to transition. I'm not trying to be a stud anymore. I'm trying to deal with all the pains that the age has brought me, the Army, military life, the Marines that y'all went through. So I do very light weights, and I do a buttload of them. Like, the Olympic bar, I used to be pretty excited about throwing a couple of 50s on each side. Yeah, I know you're going 50s. That's it. Yeah, well, okay. So we're almost 300 pounds there with the bar. Now I just do the bar. The bar's 40 pounds, but I'll do that thing 50, 60 times, and I'll do other things. But I want to go back. I don't want to go back. I want to expound on what you said, Cody. If I go a couple of days, since I've been doing this routine so long, I get irritable, restless, and discontented. I have got to do so. This program, I already had a regimen when I was in the Army because we're forced to. You got to, especially Marines. You guys, yours was a little bit tougher than the Army's, but I pushed so I could meet those requirements so we can get promoted, and then look studly. But then when you get out, nobody's pushing you anymore. It's like you're training in Fort Living Room with a TV and a beer. I had to get past
12-ounce curls.
That's it, 12-ounce curls. Preach it, man. So I had to build a discipline of my own. And then once, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, but habits, it takes a minute to start a habit, all right, 30 days. It only takes a few days to get out of it. And it's amazing how our mind goes the carnal direction in a heartbeat. And I have to have this bizarre, and my wife, God bless her. Thank you for, I'm so glad she came into my life and I have the support system I have because she knows that I've got to have this ritual that I do. That's exercise, reading, exercise, meditation, anonymous works, and prayer. Those things that I've said on previous shows. If I don't have a ritual, I'm screwed because I'm an alcoholic. My go-to is to go back to my carnal thinking, which is only, I step away from the light. It's a step into the dark. And for me, it's fast. And then I'm facing relapse. And I've been down that road. I have relapsed. I'm not going to do it again. So the exercise thing is one of my paramount pillars, right? So cool.
So we talk a lot about exercise, but I want to throw this back out here. I'm going to talk about what we talked about when we opened about the yoga and smoking and stuff. So for me, I mean, we all know that alcohol and drugs are bad for us physically, right? Every doctor and, medical professional out there is going to tell you that cigarettes are bad for you. And so in 2020, I quit smoking, and I had no way to stop smoking. It's all right, Pat. I'm gonna turn over this way, and I'm gonna talk directly to Pat for just a minute. I come with solutions and answers. I don't just come with problems.
Help.
So, I had to come up with a way to do this, right? And I had tried for years with nicotine gum, nicotine lozenges, nicotine patches, quitting cold turkey, Chantix and all of these things, right? But one thing, and I'm going to caveat this by saying at this particular point in time, I already knew that I had a form of lung disease. So I had a little bit more inspiration to quit smoking than just your average Pat, But what I found was yoga and meditation. Meditating while I'm doing yoga. And the interesting thing that I found about this was I didn't even have to go to a yoga studio to do it. I did it in my living room. I looked up yoga on YouTube.
Right. Mm-hmm.
If you're a veteran, you have access to yoga through the VA virtually. Yep. So, there's another resource, right? And what I did was whenever I was practicing this yoga every single day, and I'm meditating through this thought process of what are the positive changes that I want to make in my life. And as I'm doing this, I'm not only helping my physical being, but I'm also helping my spiritual and emotional being. But every day, whenever I'm performing this yoga in my living room, I'm envisioning this pack of cigarettes in my hand. I'm taking a cigarette out of the pack and I'm breaking it in half. And I throw it away in the trash. And little by little, I didn't realize it until all of a sudden I'm like, man, I'm only smoking 5 cigarettes a day. Wow. And then I get down and I'm like, okay, now I'm only smoking 3 cigarettes a day. Well, if I'm only smoking 3 cigarettes a day, why am I even still doing this, right? And then, I went in to have a surgery one day and I thought to myself on the way there, I was like, man, I'm only smoking 3 cigarettes a day. I smoked a cigarette on the way and I said, this is the last cigarette I'm ever going to smoke. And when I came out of that surgery, I've never put another cigarette in my mouth. And, it's those little bitty practices like that change your physical being as well. So it's not just about the exercise, right? It's about what else can we do to change ourselves physically? How can we better take care of ourselves? Anybody else?
Yeah, I meditate with an Arturo Fuente fatty dark roast cigar. Okay.
Yoga works on cigars too.
Yeah. No, I'm with Pat, man. We got to be willing, honest, open, and willing. We're not there yet.
Well, you're not really, hey, Jeremy, so you're not really talking about the smoking right now. What's the topic is just to give up something for healthy living. I mean, it could be food. It could be any kind of thing that's not really jamming with us.
Yeah. It could be anything. It could be anything that's affecting your physical health, right?
Yeah, I'll say that on the yoga topic, that's one thing that I love to do because I can just do it in my living room. I can take 15, 20, 25 minutes. I'll stretch for 5-10 minutes and do breath work, which is actually phenomenal. I love breath work. I thought it was just all hokey pokey, silly, whatever. But I got a yoga bolster or a foam roller, and I'll stretch. I'll roll out my yoga mat, and I'll put on some nice Zen music. I'll do my breath work. I'll work through thoughts. I'll think about a lot of the thoughts that I think about when I'm doing yoga are how can I be a better father? How can I be a better friend? How can I, in my career, in my profession, what's the next thing that I can do to further my career? What's the next thing that I can do? And it's a lot harder than you think. At least it is for me, because my brain starts to just wonder. And I'm thinking, okay, what do I have in the fridge for dinner? And then I have to pull back in. And it takes practice to clear your mind and think about one. At least it does for me. I'll start thinking about a million. I got to vacuum. Okay, I got laundry to do it. But that's the point of it, is to not think about all those things, right? I stress over everything almost. And it's so when I have that time to be able to stretch and clear my head and just allow whatever, originally I would do the YouTube, or I would just do yoga sounds. And it was just like, like sound bowls or whatever. And, I kind of went from that.
That's not a yoga sound.
It was like, it would be like yoga sound bath audio, where they do these sound bath treatments with these bowls, and there's a person on there with a little wooden thing, and it's, but it's relaxing and it's calming, and the actual noise, it's not words. It's not something I have to think about lyrics. I don't have to think about, it's just pitches. Different high pitch, low pitch, and that for me works. So
it works for me too until the next ad starts playing. And
I hate that.
You got to have premium.
I hate that.
You got to get premium.
Yeah, you got to do the YouTube premium.
Aggravating.
So I'm glad you said that about the sounds and the vibrations, because one thing that I have found, and I spent the vast majority of 2022 looking for some sort of religious experience, right? And so I'm digging through all of these different religions in the world and trying to read about Hinduism and Buddhism, Islam and, the Christianity and all of these things, right? Trying to find, where do I fit in? What's my thing, right? But one thing that I found through that was vibrations. When people talk, there's a vibration that happens. The world, everything surrounding us is putting off vibrations, and those sound baths and those sound bowls and those vibration rooms and stuff. All of these things, we have these frequencies that pass through our body and can change our physical spirit and our emotional spirit.
For me, it's when my cat crawls up on my chest and starts purring. There's a certain vibration of that. And
Really?
that period in between from when she puts me to sleep by doing that and before, it's almost like a meditative period. And I can just sit there and just enjoy that moment and be all the things that you were talking about, Cody. I need to stop and get gas before I go to so-and-so tomorrow. And I need to, I don't have food in the fridge. The cat's close to being out of food, whatever. My mind wanders off, but if I'm in that state, it calms that a lot. It quiets a lot of that stuff, and I can just kind of be at one with the moment. And that's nice. I think it's probably especially nice for addicts and alcoholics, because I know my mind, it races all the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I go to bed, when my head hits the pillow, that squirrel cage starts running. And I'll get up and get in the recliner, and if I can get her to come up, sit on my belly, that just relaxes the heck out of me.
There is something to that stuff. We got dogs. If I'm just feeling a little bit out of sorts, get a dog up there, I pet it, and I feel better.
Yeah.
It's wintertime. I have a fish tank. I'm piddly farting with that fish tank in the wintertime. I am not you exercise guys. I have a very physical job, and at the end of the day, I hurt. And I am not going to go running around the block. It's not happening.
Amen. Amen to that.
So in the wintertime, I take care of the fish. I'm putting little plants or house plants in there all the time and all this stuff. I even water our plants with my fish water. In the summertime, I'm doing something in the yard. Normally, I try to have good flower beds and decorations in the backyard. We talk about some pretty heavy and serious shit.
Yeah.
And I do that in that backyard, or I do it in front of that fish tank. I take my sponsees in there. If there's a deep conversation I have to have with Edie, which has been very seldom, but, life happens, people, just different things happen in our lives. And it's not that we're going through something, but family family's going through something and it's a deep conversation, and these are where I hold these things. You know, that fish tank, you're watching those fish, and there's something about it. It just brings the blood pressure down for me. You know, I'm not as defensive or argumentative. I'm not on the attack. I'm just like, okay, just bring it to me. Let's work and talk, and let me see if I can help you or you can help me or whatever. And then when I'm in the backyard, you know, the hummingbird feeders, the lights, all the plants out there, the decorations, you know, it's a pretty backyard we've established. And, you know, you get these guys out there, and I don't know if she's ever taken any of her female sponsees out. Well, yes, she has. She's had some couple talks with hers, but that's her. I take my guys out there. We're talking about these things that we don't talk about out in public. And it kind of knocks that edge off of everything. You know, yeah, we're in the middle of town, but we have the privacy fence around there. You got a little bit of nature. And when I am really batshit crazy in my head, I go kayaking. And there's a couple places that are really secluded, and that's where I go, and I'll watch that sun come up or that sun set, and I feel so connected. That would be the closest I come to exercise. Cody is paddling that thing. And I'll jump out and go swim and get back in, and I'm praying while all this is happening. I don't even have to fish while this is going on. So I do a little bit of that too. And that reels me in when I got the batshit crazy going on, and I need a hard reset or whatever. That's how I get my remap.
Yeah, I think, and it is. That is a form of physical activity, and I think that falls right into what we're talking about, right? It can be just as simple as Bob going out rucking. I go for walks. I try to walk as often as I can. Here, as of late, I haven't been walking as much, but I've been physically working in my shop. You know, a lot of times for me, it's just out building a cabinet. If I am running a saw, I can't think about the other things that are going on in the world, right?
You better not.
I have to be right where my hands are at that exact moment. All right, so now let's shift for a second, and let's talk about this for a minute. And I've been sitting here trying to rack my brain to come up with something here, and I'm drawing a blank, y'all. Is there things that you have tried that have not worked?
TV. Yeah. So, I can't. I try to relax. People, you know, relax, watch TV. I mean, I heard tons of people do it. I can't do it. I can watch an episode or two or something, but then I'm like, if I can get out of this chair and go do something, I'm gonna lose my mind. So TV does not work for me. I know it's a therapeutic for a lot of people that just want to, you know, brain dump and live through, you know, vicariously through some characters in a show. I can't do that.
Jeremy, are we talking about before we got in recovery or after?
Any of the above.
Okay, because how long have you got? Things I've tried before I got in recovery.
You've got 6 minutes left, Sloan.
No, I don't want to take up anybody's time, but yeah, since I've been in recovery, I don't think I've had anything that I just hit a dead end road on. I just like hanging out with the guys that are also in recovery. We do stuff multiple nights a week. We go watch ball games. That to me is in itself very, you know, therapeutic for me to just hang out. And I don't have to, you know, we don't have to talk about recovery all the time. We don't. We just talk about what's going on in our lives, or, you know, the weather, or who's going to win this football game, or
Not the Razorbacks.
yeah. Oh, we'll pick
Be gone with you, Tony.
Yeah. Oh, but yeah, that's all I've got on that.
Florida's much better. Okay.
Pat, you got any thoughts?
No, I really don't. I'm listening to y'all, and I'm drifting, guys. So I'm drifting.
Spending money used to make me feel good.
Oh,
Hallelujah. Yeah.
Then I discovered that that's a very slippery slope. I mean,
yeah.
it's where's my morals, motives? I mean, yeah, build something, do whatever, but is it a waste? Am I just doing it to waste money, just to change the way I'm feeling? And I'm not saying that's good or bad either way, but if it's taken away from your bill money, that's a bad thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely it is. And
Good point.
you can buy all the things in the world, and at the end of the day, there's not a lot of spiritual value to that stuff. You're just buying something to try to fill a hole, which I went through that phase. And I got into guns, and then I got into, other stuff. And I'd get on Amazon, get tweaked out on Amazon, and next thing I know, it's 4:00 in the morning, and I've spent $500 that I don't have on stuff that I absolutely don't need.
Shit, I did this in sobriety.
Yeah. I can do it in sobriety if I'm not careful, but I really have to step back and think, do I want this, or do I really need this? And is this am I doing this to try to fill some kind of a hole that I don't think you can throw so many things in that hole and it'll just get bigger. And, Bob can be witness of that, because when I rented a house from Bob and I first got sober, he's like, are you going to use this? And, I had a big bunch of remote control cars. Some of them I never even got out in the yard and played with. And it's taking up a whole corner of the garage. And I was like, no, let's get rid of it. And it felt like such a cleansing to do that. And I've been kind of a minimalist ever since. I mean, I've still got things I like, and, I can spend money like nobody else, but I just don't go in for that today. I feel like that. I think God filled a huge hole in my life, and he's pretty much for free, for fun and for free, as Ralph says. That's awesome.
Comfort food, fried chicken. When Robin passed and it was really hitting me, I could eat some fried chicken and it'd take the edge off. But like I can't do, and here's the thing, that's great. It helped take the edge off. But if I'm eating fried chicken all the time, even with it not feeling quite so bad, just to make me feel better, then we get into that physical thing. Paul's already a big boy. Paul don't need to be getting any bigger. So I have to be careful of stuff like that.
Come to my house, Paul. I got plenty of fried chicken.
Great conversation, folks. All right, Dwight, you got anything?
I'm good. I'm just listening to you guys. I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Well, fellas, we are coming out to the end of the night. Does anybody have anything that we've left out or thoughts you want to share before we wrap up?
I'm a sick bastard. When y'all was talking about that electricity stuff, I got this new 10s unit on steroids, and I really thought, I said, I wonder how I can hook that up to my head. It was a fleeting thought.
You can hook them up to your head, Paul.
Just for the listening audience, I do not recommend hooking your 10s unit to your head.
Yeah, that's where that ask your doctor first thing comes in.
Wow. No. It's great when it works. He gonna hook those up to my.
Or stop. No, cut.
No, don't do it.
Golly.
I speak from experience. Don't do it.
Oh man, my stomach hurts.
Okay, all right, listening audience, we're going to start cutting out of here before this conversation starts taking turns that we definitely do not want it to take. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight and making this an awesome, awesome night. There's been a lot of really great things that have been shared, and I've got a lot of things that I'm going to take away from tonight. I hope that you out there in the listening audience have heard some things that you can help relate to and help change your journey to the positive and help you in your life. We've all been through a lot of things, and we've tried a lot of different things to get ourselves healthy into where we're at today. And that doesn't mean that life still doesn't hit us like a ton of bricks sometimes, because it absolutely is going to at different points in time. But, there's been a lot of solutions that have been shared tonight that work for a lot of people. It's not just us. If some of the things that you have heard here tonight trigger you and cause you to have some crazy thoughts, reach out to the National Suicide Hotline, dial 988. That's a wonderful resource. You are not alone. You are not alone. I want to stress that, and I hope that somebody has told you that today, that you are not alone. So what say you on today's show? Leave your thoughts and comments on shoutoutfromthepit.com. So that's it, folks. Thanks for listening, and please share our show with folks that could use some encouragement and extra tools for their recovery journey. The bucket is up. Hit the donation link on shoutoutfromthepit.com and help us update our equipment and grow the show. And be sure to subscribe at shoutoutfromthepit.com for future episodes. You can hear it. You can get it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. It's for free and for fun. Remember, you are not alone. And if no one's told you today they love you,
We love you.
I'm Jeremy, praying you have an outstanding American day. God bless and peace out.
Go!